you want to talk about? I think mainly, Stace, why don't we get started with the elephant in the room, and that is why is this storm not doing what we thought this storm was going to do?
Let's.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll begin.
Okay.
Since I've been watching this like you have for the last 5 days, and actually, I have a picture from the 1st of March of the jet stream pattern that was predicted for March 15th.
Mm-hmm.
It had a great big low pressure system sitting right over the Four Corners area. And that's exactly what happened. That forecast was over almost 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So
Wow.
we knew, I remember tweeting that out and saying, beware the Ides of March. We knew there'd be a big storm. But it's the fine tuning. That's what the details on a storm that always are the trickiest. This is a huge storm, and it's going to be a massive storm, but it's going to be a massive storm 100 miles to the north of us in southeastern Wyoming. Now, 5 days ago, we knew we were going to have a huge storm. Heck, 12 days ago, we knew we were going to have a huge storm. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty, it's exactly where's that huge storm to be. And I think we've all been getting a fair amount of, what should we call it? Helpful criticism?
Disappointed fans?
Yeah, right. It's like fashion sense. About, why was this forecast wrong? And the fact of the matter is it's not snowing as much here, but we really couldn't pinpoint that until late yesterday.
Right.
This afternoon, I put out a tweet saying, well, snow lovers, looks like this is going to go a little farther north. And I had a number of people say, this storm isn't even here yet. How can you be saying that? It's like, well, just 40 years of watching how these storms develop. And it wasn't a matter of models. It was just something wasn't coming together just as we thought it might a few days ago.
And that's why we comment that it's not set in stone as we're tracking this a week and a half out, that one change 100 miles to the north, 100 miles to the south changes things dramatically, at least for the Front Range. And that's kind of what we're seeing. But this isn't a small storm by any means. It was a little slow to start, but it's not like we're going to have nothing.
No. And I'm looking at the radar right now, and we'll get another little break coming across the metro area in the next hour or so, and people are going to wonder what happened. But there's more precipitation down to the south. And so we'll end up probably, when you melt it all down, with an inch, maybe an inch and a half of liquid that will fall from this storm.
Right. Mm-hmm.
March storm. Some of that's going to come down as snow that melts when it hits the ground.
Right. I'm reading a lot of the comments here on Facebook because a lot of folks are saying, hey, thanks for reporting the storm and keeping us up to date, because it is good to be able to prepare. Even if it doesn't come down like we thought, we are at least prepared for whatever does happen. And yeah, we have one snowfall map that's up, and you were going to talk about kind of snowfall totals in that they changed in the last 48 hours. Still that bullseye up toward Estes Park and up into Wyoming, though.
Right.
Heavy amounts there. So right now, I think the snowfall forecast that's up is your map with all the pretty colors on it.
Yes, and talk a little bit about weather models, because I always joked that when I was in college and they talked about the Norwegian cyclone model, I thought it was going to be a tall blonde, but it ended up being a bunch of math problems. Actually, the history of trying to model meteorology, and when people say, oh, well, it's an inexact science, that's not true. Meteorology is a very exact science. It follows all of the laws of physics. It's just an extraordinary complicated science.
Good point.
And to take every subtle little movement in the atmosphere and try and simulate in a supercomputer how that's going to happen over the course of time. The farther you get out from real time, the more error begins to flow into the model. The very first computers for meteorology were not machines, they were people. And there was a guy named Richardson back in World War I. And where fronts came from is that he envisioned the way weather moves, cold air masses, warm air masses, like armies. And the front was the leading edge of the army. And this Richardson, who was a Brit, realized that we could, using calculus equations, actually mathematically take a little square, if you would, of this army and move it a little bit And then with time, we could see how it was changed. We could move it again and again and again. And so what he envisioned is they would have a room full of computers, and each computer would do one calculation and pass the calculation to the next computer. Computers then would have been human beings that would
Right.
have been in this great theater, and they would be each doing one calculation, passing the paper to the next. And the whole idea of numerical weather prediction started there. And the only problem was that the humans, even though they were very skilled mathematicians, as fast as they could work, the forecast came out 10 days late.
After all that work.
So it didn't do much good. But now with modern supercomputers, we can take all the data in and let the computers do all the number crunching, and we get forecasts that come out. But what makes it more fun is that there's a bunch of different models, right?
Right.
You have the GFS model and the North American model and the European model and the Canadian model. And if you stick the same data into 4 different models that all have slightly different equations and different sized little grid points and layers and all that, do you think you get the same answer on the other side? No, always, very rarely. And that's why when people are watching and they see different forecasts and stuff, it's, forecasters are using different tools to figure it out.
Right. And we have one map that's up for your earlier forecast position. And you had a couple cool maps where you showed the earlier and then the current. And it's really not that far away, but it is slightly different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's another sports analogy, because I think I used the golf analogy on the earlier show. This happened today in the PGA tournament, that this player hit a magnificent golf shot over the water hazard. It's going right for the pin, and it hits the pin 3 inches above the hole. And rather than dropping in for a hole in one, it bounces off the pin and into the water hazard. So, I mean, his shot was perfect, but the result was he put it in the water hazard. And so the forecast on this wasn't a bad forecast. Big storm, we called for it way in advance. There is a big storm, but it's slightly different in the position. And so when people say, well, your forecast busted, there's not a big storm. Oh, there's a big storm. But
and blizzard warnings affect Wyoming.
Yeah, we see all the time with hurricane forecasts. They put the hurricane cone out there, and people evacuate in some locations, and the hurricane shifts. Well, was it wrong to have these people evacuate?
Right.
I suppose in retrospect, a lot of people had to evacuate, but had that storm gone where it was originally predicted and you didn't evacuate, you'd be dead.
Good point. I mean, in 2020 hindsight, always. But with that blizzard warning and still a winter storm warning here for the Front Range, it's going to continue to snow tonight and tomorrow. So, when we hear the comments, it's like the storm isn't over. We still have another push of energy that's going to come in and give us snow tomorrow. And I was just out walking the dog. I almost slipped on the sidewalk. It is so slick out there with that snow. And as the temperature drops, it's going to ice over. So, we have the blizzard warning up. It covers most of southern Wyoming up into Cheyenne. And then the winter storm warning stretches down into Fort Collins and Denver. And so what are you thinking for tomorrow?
Well, I think the worst of it, and I'm just looking at our warnings here. I think the worst of the storm tonight's going to be 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. And so tomorrow morning, it's going to be tough to get around. And if you don't have to go anywhere, I wouldn't go anywhere. Probably it'll linger into tomorrow afternoon, because this storm is going to swirl around, as you said, for a long time still, even into early Monday. And so it's still going to be a major impact on us. It'll be a great moisture producer. It is hitting over a weekend, which, most people have fewer things they have to go do. We don't have to worry about school closures tomorrow or anything like that. I think in this time of COVID, hopefully a lot of people are able to attend church or whatever virtually, like we've been operating out of our homes for a year.
True.
Yeah. That's your green screen behind you and mine behind me from our houses.
Working from home. And the snowfall totals I just put up, 8 to 12 inches is still what you're expecting here for the metro area, and up to 2 feet up toward Estes Park. And then that zoomed in section where it's 12 to 18 closer to Castle Rock.
And Castle Rock's gonna be a little tougher, only because right now the surface winds are out of the southeast.
Mhm.
And the problem with a southeasterly surface wind is, if you think about it, the air is coming down off of the Palmer Divide, and that's a downsloping wind. If we had northeasterly surface winds blowing in from the northeast, that would force that moisture up into the Castle Rock area, Monument Hill. It's not happening right now. It still may, as the whole low pressure system continues to evolve further to the east. But if it's not snowing very hard in Castle Rock, and judging by what I'm looking at the radar, it's not.
Right.
The reason is because your surface winds are from the wrong direction.
And that's the thing we talk about, like all the levels of the cake that we figure out for all the models throughout the atmosphere. You take one little piece out, or as you're making the cake, you take the flour out, the cake is completely changed. So you change the wind a little bit from another direction, and suddenly there's not as much snow down in Castle Rock. And we try to look at the whole cake as the storm is coming our way.
Yeah.
And a few things change, and that's along the sports analogy as well. I think I had a sportscaster say that to me once. Is like, you take John Elway out of the game, it's a whole different game.
Yeah.
Know?
Yeah. That's a great line. And I remember years ago, I was working with Ron Zappolo.
Yeah.
He was down on the sidelines when Elway was playing one day, and he said, "Man," he was interviewing Elway on the show, and he says, "That game is so fast down there. It looks so much different than it does in the press box." And Elway just looked at him and said, "Why do you think interceptions happen?" And it's, for us, from our vantage point, why did you miss that guy, or how could you throw that? It's like, you don't get it when you're down there. And we're not trying to make excuses on this storm, but there's a lot of subtleties that happen in whether or not you get a big storm. And that's part of the reason why, the blizzard of 1982, of 1997, of 2003 stick in our minds, because they don't happen all that often.
Right.
I've often liked to ask people, do you remember the great blizzard of Thanksgiving 1983? And I get a lot of blank stares, because a year after the big Christmas Eve blizzard, we had a huge storm on the eastern plains, but the snow ended about Watkins and didn't hit Denver. And so there was a giant storm the next year.
Wow.
It closed down all of eastern Colorado, but nobody remembers it because it didn't hit Denver by 50 miles.
Yeah. And right now I have the winter weather advisory in effect for western Colorado and a winter storm warning for I-70 up in the high country, where we also have an avalanche watch, because this time of year especially, we get so much snow in a short period of time in the high country and along I-70. The roads will be closed off and on to protect people. The avalanche danger is tremendous. Stay out of the backcountry for the next couple of days. But we still have that winter storm warning in effect up in the mountains and here for the Front Range through Monday morning.
Yeah. And stay in bounds, folks.
Yeah.
You know how to see people going out after trying to risk their life chasing you because you wanted to ski out of bounds. So it's just important. And I know we were getting some comments about, well, you've been saying warnings all week. And I don't know about you, Stace, but I don't recall, we do a lot of weathercasts, but I don't recall saying the words warning until the official warnings came out on Thursday afternoon for the storm.
Yes.
I know that
watch up until that point.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of potential for this to be a really big storm, because there was.
Right.
But to actually issue the warnings. But, part of what also happens is there's so many sources now for information.
True.
And, there's apps that don't have any human interaction. They just pump up stuff that comes out of the forecast models and stuff. And it really still is a mix of art and science, because you can look at all the models and they're what we call guidance.
Right.
And I know that yesterday when I put out a note that said, I'm just not feeling the love on this storm right now, and I think the worst of it might be to the north of us, some people said, yeah, but the 16 GFS is just coming out. And it's like, which is one of the models for those that, and I said, it's not the model. It's 4 decades of looking at troughs develop and the jet stream position and all of that. And it just, my sense was, this isn't all falling together just right for us. Falling together great for Wyoming.
Yeah, Sue was on Facebook and she wrote, in 2003, I was shoveling snow off my flat roof for 10 full days. Do you remember that caved in roof that year? I think there were quite a few that year with that big blizzard that rolled on through. And Nicole is saying, just take it easy so you stay safe. Like, I think overall, it's with good intention that we predict these storms out so far to get people ahead of it. And then as it's rolling in, and we're trying to get that fine tuning as it's getting closer and closer. This is a huge storm, and it's acting a lot like a hurricane with the bands that are rolling through,
Yep.
and the energy in the middle that's strong. And so when you have that much acreage covered with energy from a low pressure area, there's a lot going on.
They had some big tornadoes in the panhandle of Texas today.
Right.
So, I mean, it was some. I did some math, which I don't do much of anymore, but it's pretty simple. I did the calculation, and a foot of snow on an acre of a roof, say like a big box store or a warehouse, weighs 250,000 pounds, 115 tons. So you can see why we had roofs collapse back in 2003.
That was, yeah, that was crazy. Krista says, we live in Colorado. Why is anyone surprised by this? Things do change. You wait 5 minutes, things do change.
Well, it's still predicting the future.
It is.
And I can give you some great stock tips or help you with those online betting things if you offer your sports team, but it's still predicting the future, right?
It is. And we still have that blizzard warning. I have that pulled up here on the computer up towards Cheyenne. And usually when we have the winter storm warning butting right up against a blizzard warning like that, it's a lot of trouble, especially into tonight and early tomorrow from Cheyenne to Fort Collins, all the way up into southern Wyoming. So if you have travels that way, I'd put that off till that blizzard warning.
I don't think I'd be wanting to drive I-80 anytime up there.
Right.
Yeah.
And winter weather advisories for the Eastern Plains as well, because we've seen so much rain. I was surprised at how many lightning strikes we had early this morning for the Eastern Plains. There was just so much energy over there.
We're getting some again right now out around Cheyenne Wells, south of Burlington. Some pretty good lightning out there. And, the great thing about this is we'll take the moisture. Boy, we've had that awful drought. And so any of this that comes in is good. I mean,
that's so true. And I'm going to throw the Futurecast up here, kind of show you what this is looking like over the next. So that low is right now sitting off to our east. That's going to create heavy snow off through the west, and then that blizzard warning up into Wyoming. But it really clears out as we go into Monday. And then another storm comes in on Tuesday. So we're expecting more snow then.
And that storm is actually interesting because if it were not there, we'd probably be getting a bigger storm out of this one. And as you know, we call that secondary storm the kicker. And what it is if you kind of think about crack the whip, and so there's a big wave in the atmosphere. If there's not anything back behind it to kick that out, that big wave just kind of stays there longer. But this is what I started to see yesterday was there's another wave coming in behind that, AKA the kicker. And it's going to kick this low out a little bit faster, which means it doesn't deepen as much. It doesn't drop as far south. And so it's that second storm coming in Tuesday that's actually the reason why we're not getting a bigger storm right now.
Right. When we see some of those things closed off and they just sit and they spin, and there can be a lot of damage associated with that if they're not going anywhere.
They sit around and just don't do much. I had a brother-in-law like that.
Nice. Well, in the meantime, we're going to expect snow to be falling tonight and intensifying.
Yep.
So it looks like it'll be pretty icy tomorrow morning. What do you think about tomorrow early?
I think it'd be a great morning to cook up some bacon and maybe sit there with a nice extra cup of coffee and just look out the window and watch it snow. I would not plan on doing anything tomorrow. If you've already laid in, you've got 6 or 7 gallons of milk, you can probably ride out the storm through Monday morning and be in good shape. And so, tomorrow morning is going to be, this is a good March storm, good, solid March storm. It's just not one that 5 or 10 years from now, we're going to say, boy, I remember that March storm in 2021. Right. Now, if you live up in the panhandle of Nebraska or southeast Wyoming, you will.
You'll remember. Yes.
Yeah, they'll remember.
And we are still expecting the snow to fall tonight and all day through tomorrow, potentially, and then clearing out Monday early. So Yeah, we'll have a little bit of a break between this storm and the one that arrives on Tuesday.
Yep.
So we're just looking at some pretty cold, icy weather for the next couple of days.
Mid-March. Sounds like
What it is.
Colorado, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So, do we have any other comments, questions, or anything, Stace? Because I know we've got an 8 o'clock show coming up here
yeah,
on
we do have one
Channel
coming
3.
up. Let's see. Well, a lot of people kind of understanding, hey, we're in Colorado, and yes, the models do change. A lot of people not forgiving the fact that the models do change. Pretty mad about it.
No, we get that. We've been, between you and I, Stace,
Absolutely.
mostly because of my advanced age, but we've been doing weather for decades,
Yeah.
and we both have certainly gotten this before.
Yes. And Brenda says, thanks for the updates. Thanks, Brenda. And so that's the thing. If we do the best with the information that we have at the time, and as things change, we update you about that. And so it's why it's a lot of times people see the news a couple of days ago. So that's what they were like, oh, wait, it was supposed to be really huge. And we've been updating along the way. And like you said, it's not excuses, it's explaining.
Right.
And we still have winter storm warnings for the metro area in effect by the National Weather Service. And I've been telling everybody to be safe, be really careful, and don't get out on the roads and get stuck, because that's the worst. I've done it. It's the worst.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing worse and it's dangerous, and especially in this time of COVID. I mean, you don't know, can somebody come up and help you push your car out of the snowbank? I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we need to just stay safe a little bit longer. I would like to just reflect on this a bit. Stacey and I have worked together now for 6 years.
Yeah, right.
It's been great. And I've been doing this business since the mid-1970s, and the staff that I get to work with right now is just fabulous. And I know that you do this because you love weather, and Lisa does as well, and Katie feels the same way. We're not showboating. We're not doing this for the ratings.
Right.
We're doing this because we have a love for weather and a thrill of storms, and we like to try and hopefully get information out to the public that's useful. Yes. And so to anybody that's tuning in, if you feel like we've let you down this week, it was not with any intention. We were trying to give you the best information we had at the time, and we will continue to do that tonight and tomorrow and into Monday and on into the future. But it's a pleasure to work with you, Stacey, and I have so much trust in what you do, and just a sense of feeling, a little bit at ease, because I know I've got great colleagues.
That's great. I feel the same way. And I know that if we were in the office right now, you'd be bringing in snow nuts for everyone because it'd be snowing. So no, Somebody just wrote on here, time for the donut. And I was like,
good. Well, partner, I will see you at 8 o'clock. Okay, we'll be on Denver's only 8 o'clock newscast.
Yes.
No, we don't normally do one on Saturday and Sunday nights, but tonight, because of the storm, we're doing a special edition, and Jessica Porter will be there, and we'll have the whole team.
It'll be great.
Yeah. So thanks for all your help, Stace, and thanks everybody for your questions and comments, and for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.